Turned 39 Friday week ago. At the height of his playing career, he was 6'1". After some of those fights, he shrunk to 6 foot. Playing at 100 kilos, which is 15 stone, 10 pound, where in today's game, 100 kilo is just about making the weight size. Played in the second row, played at lock, the occasional game at hooker. Most importantly, played 204 first grade NRL games. With the Sydney Roosters from 2001 to 2005, 92 games. 20 tries, and this is a great statistic, 75 goals during those years. Never kicked a goal for another side, they wouldn't let you. Melbourne Storm from 2006 to 2008, 44 games, 7 tries, and South from 2009 to 13, 68 games, 5 tries. Then representative career in 2011. You played in the Prime Minister's 13, 1 game for them. 2003 to 2009 for Queensland, 13 games. And 2003 to 2008 for Australia for 6 games there. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for one of our top stars of rugby league, Michael Crocker. Now, Michael, let's have a chat about some of that video that we just saw. The very first video that came up where you...
Yeah, thanks for that.
It wasn't me, I had nothing to do with that. But it must be hard, I think, to see a situation where you are put into a position of not being in control of your body.
I think pretty much every time you go in the football field, there's potential to go into a situation like that. But yeah, that one, that's my fault. You know, I should have been there faster, got pressure on the kicker and made some contact, but yeah, I didn't quite get there. And I'd been taught not to put our arms up to go for the charge down. So yeah, just turn the head and relax, thinking that it wasn't going to be part of the play. And yeah, I've got a fair few views on YouTube because of it, and it wasn't great. I actually tore my glute as I landed because I buckled down it, but I was in all sorts for a bit. But our doc at the time was one of the first to go through a full concussion protocol with us. And mate, I remember saying, for those that don't know, the concussion protocol's really difficult. They tell you 5 numbers to start with. You've got to repeat them, then they'll go through all these questions. You've got to say the months backwards from September, which a lot of footballers can't do anyway. They can't do the normal way around. Go through a whole heap of different questions, then repeat the first numbers 5 minutes later. So I got through that, and all the way through it was saying, "Doc, just let me catch a ball and make a tackle and I'll be right." He's like, "No, we've got to go through this." So I did get out there, and it was a good win for us because we actually won down there in Sydney for the first time I think it was the first game we'd actually won at ANZ.
So you're saying with the current HIA protocol that they go through, that there's quite a significant number of forwards that couldn't pass it before they caught it off?
Yeah, and that's the key to having the doctors know what the baseline is. So yeah, a lot of footy players are intelligent, a lot of them aren't, but a lot of them also try and pretend that they're not that smart to get through these. But there's so many different things that they've got to do on a computer and with the doc that they know their actual baseline.
We'll catch up with some current football a little bit later on, because we need to find out a little bit about your background, being a Sydney born and bred guy.
Not by choice. I wasn't born there by choice. Dad's from Ipswich. I had no option. I had no control in where I was born. They were just down there for a couple of years. Dad obviously had to do a bit of work to make some money, and as soon as I could string a sentence together, I said, "Let's get back up to Queensland." They said, "Yep, let's go."
So at age 5, you knew I need to be a Queenslander.
It's actually 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Took me a while to put a sentence together.
Your dad, Steve, you mentioned he was born in Ipswich. He obviously loved the area to take the family down to Sydney for work situations, but at the first opportunity to move back, wise move on his part?
Oh, absolutely. Although I think he was down in Sydney for a long time. He went to visit St Greg's Boy, Fairfield Pats, I think, for his secondary education. And when he came back, so his mum and dad were up in Sandgate, and it was obviously a good time for us to come back, and we moved in around the corner from them. So I was blessed to have them to grow up with as well. And it's a sleepy old town in the northern suburbs, but it was a great upbringing for me. We had 12 or so kids on our street, and it was a good environment. So every day we were outside playing footy or tennis or cricket or whatever we could.
And Dad, Steve, he was, what was he working at the time? A mate of mine said he was something to do with negotiating contracts or something.
Yeah, so he started off designing lifts and elevators for Otis, and then the recession came in, and he finished school in grade 10 and went to TAFE, and then got his certificate and was working. He was doing quite a good job. But once the recession ended, then obviously it was more about younger people with qualifications and stuff. So he came back. He actually went to uni and did 2 degrees when we came back to Queensland, and then started working in roads and bridges. And he's like a project engineer and project manager.
And with that experience he had in negotiating all of those sort of contracts, at any stage did you use him as your manager, negotiator for you?
Not once. He's not real good at passing on the information. He lets me walk my own path. He obviously works hard himself, but he left that sort of stuff to the people that were entrusted to do it for me.
They were experts at it.
Well, allegedly were.
Yeah. Well, we will talk later about the current rugby league players' agents and find out what they do and what their roles are and so forth. But when you moved back to Queensland, you started your rugby league journey, I think, with North's Devils. And at age 12, you were coached by a former Queensland halfback. You recall him?
Yeah, well, it was a great time. So, a couple of years earlier than that, Tommy Renonicus was coaching the first grade team at Norths, and we were one of the best junior teams. So they were playing in the grand final. We got to form the tunnel for them to run out, and then we heard Tommy's speech pre-game as well, which was interesting for a 10-year-old to hear. And then they first scrum, we were sat on the sideline at the Old Lang Park, and a fight broke out, and it was a reasonable fight. And there was, as a 10-year-old, just your eyes open pretty wide to that sort of stuff. But that's just how the Queensland Cup was played back then. And Ross Hendricks came in as our coach in under 12s, and he picked the best players from every division into the state carnival at state carnival. So we were untouchable for I think 6 years. We won every competition. I was the 13th best player out of it, just a skinny little white kid playing fullback. I think it was at the time, because I could run, I could jump, and I could tackle okay. So, it was for me. I think that period in my life was really good for me, because everyone around me was so good that every day at training I had to be really competitive and try and be as good as them. So I think that drive got me to where I was, and sadly for that team that was so good through juniors, I made first grade, and Ross's son Trent played Q Cup, and that's all. Everyone else sort of went the other way down a different path. So it's a sad story, but it's a very common story for a lot of young footballers.
But that, as you mentioned, that team you did go on, you were just about unbeatable. You were unbeaten for the next 4 years in grand finals. So that in itself, your history of grand finals is absolutely phenomenal, which we'll get on your NRL career later with the number of grand finals you played. But most kids don't get to play in one grand final. You've been unbeaten in 4 grand finals in a row before you've moved over to Redcliffe Dolphins.
Who we used to beat in all those grand finals.
Yeah.
Which was a controversial time. I did it again when I was at the Roosters, went to the Rabbits, so always seemed to go to the rivals.
Well, when you've gone to Redcliffe Dolphins, you've also fallen under a couple of sensational coaches there in Mark Murray and, ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Griffin.
He was the assistant Griffin. Actually.
Assistant Griffin. Back when you were 17, you've come across him then. How did those, like with Ross Hendricks, Mark Murray, Anthony Griffin, what role did they play in teaching you how to be a player that could go on?
I took it for granted a little bit at the time. Obviously, Ross, he was always pushing me just to be better, and it was actually one of the best junior coaches I had was the first year I went to Redcliffe. Was a guy called Brian Winnie, who allowed me to be my own sort of player and just sort of gave me the confidence to do that. But I think the knowledge that I learned from all of them in terms of what to look for on the field and the different positions that you had to play and be in if you were in a certain position was, I think that was, that's growing up as a kid. That's it's priceless.
You had a great team in the under-17s with Redcliffe, where 7 players out of that one team did go on and have NRL experience.
Yeah, which is crazy considering the North team that we had. I had just myself. It was the 13th best player. It was. It is phenomenal when you look back, and they weren't just players that had a couple of games on. They had pretty good careers.
They had a very good career. Like a couple of the names that you know, like Sam Ops, Brad Watts, Craig Frawley, Benny Jones, but 2 of the big ones that went on to have long-term careers similar to your own, Brent Tate and Dane Carlaw.
It was a pretty special team that we had, and it was Redcliffe's it's a blue collar town, it's a hard working town, and they were, I think, grew up around it was a pretty tough area as well through school, so they played tough, and the competition they played was tough. They played Deception Bay was the opposition team that we played against. They were pretty violent, I guess you could say, but I guess I was used to that playing at North and watching all the senior players play there. But it was to see all those guys go on and have a good career was it was pretty special.
So that toughness that you're talking about on the field, was that resembling the games that you would play on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon, just with you and your mates out in the park?
Well, I was a sook as a kid. I was a skinny little white boy that was the youngest of all our kids that were playing on the street, and I think I learned and earned respect really, really quickly, because if I carried on as a kid, the old boys in the street, they'd put a forearm on my face or push me around and put a shot on me. So I learned pretty quickly about respect, and I think that upbringing, even though I was injury prone and did hurt myself a little bit, may have sucked a bit, I definitely learned from it.
Well, I think also your family background, being a Irish Catholic boy, toughed you up quite considerably.
Yeah, mum's side was German as well, so there's a good combination. No wonder I've got some issues.
High school, you went to the Southern Cross College, Catholic College in Scarborough.
Yeah, St Pat's boy first over at Shorncliffe, and then I actually left there because I think it was grade 11, the rugby coach said to me, he goes, mate, I want you to play first 15, but you're going to have to stop playing league on Sundays. And I was a bit shocked, and I had another mate that lived over at Redcliffe, so we changed schools, and Southern Cross had their own league program, plus they had a union, and we could play a league on the weekend, so I got even more sport, and it was co-ed, so at the time, as a 16-year-old, it was a pretty good time. Not that I was involved in any way interested in girls back then, it was all about study.
Studying sport, yeah. Now, you had a period of time playing for the Redcliffe Dolphins in Queensland Cup, so as a young fella coming into that sort of level, playing against men, that experience there, did it bring out the best in you?
Oh, absolutely, and we were blessed there. So at 17, they had an academy system at Redcliffe, so we got to train with the first graders. And like I said, learning and earning respect was something that, as a kid, I had learned, and even through my family, those values were pretty well instilled in us. But you're training with these men, and you learn pretty quickly about what you have to do, and you listen to what they say, and they were always good to you. They'd give you the tips if you needed to, but they'd rip into you if you needed to. So once I got the chance to play, myself and Sammy Hobbs played in the grand final in '99, and we'd only played a few games of first grade, but the guys that we had around us, there was a few players that played first grade in the NRL or the ARL, as it was back then, and a couple of guys have been around Redcliffe for a long time. So it was we lost that grand final. I think it was the first grand final I lost. So it was a strange feeling for me. It wasn't a great one, but it actually inspires you to go on and want to be more successful.
And you did have a lot of success with Redcliffe, and from that, it led you to move south.
My stories are so good, my partner's leaving. Put it to sleep already.
Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, Curie's gone off to a basketball game tonight. She's going in to hopefully score 40-odd points. All the best, Curie.
No fouls. Much like myself, plays very aggressive.
We know some good lawyers over the years that might be able to help you get in from it. You moved south to make your NRL debut for the Sydney Roosters. How did it come about that a young fellow playing in Brisbane, or Redcliffe, gets picked up by a club as big as the Sydney Roosters, and who was the instigator to introduce you to them?
So it was Arthur Beetson. Arthur Beetson's obviously played for Redcliffe. The year I was playing, I was still playing Colts when they came up. We had an affiliation, well, they started an affiliation with Redcliffe to look at talent. And the football manager at the time was Brian Canterman, who was a Queenslander as well. And they came up to watch a game, and they obviously had a list of players to look at. And again, I think I was the fifth player on that list. But had one of those games, I had a game, I scored 4 tries, set up one, and defensively was quite good. So I've never played like that again, unfortunately, but it was just one of those things where I stood out, and myself, Sam Hobbs and Trent Clayton all got the opportunity to go down and go into the Roosters system.
And with signing with the Roosters, you signed as player number
1,000.
1,000. Congratulations on that. You haven't got that tattooed anyway?
No, I've got a little badge somewhere.
Yeah. That's unbelievable to be able to pick up that number. But in your first year down there, in 2002, you played in the NRL Grand Final against the New Zealand Warriors. How was that memory for you?
No, it was good. I was just thinking, sorry, the first couple of years before that, I obviously went through I just want to talk about the pathway. So we had a Jersey fleet, which was under 20s, then reserve grade, and then first grade. So I played a couple of games in fleet, then moved up to reserve grade, and this is back when rugby league, this is how I believe it should still be, is the reserve grade competition was really strong. And my first reserve grade team, I remember I ran out and it was Quinton Pongia, Nat Wood, Ian Rubin in the front row, and then Dallas Hood, Brendan Julian, I think Julian Bailey, or Brendan Hurst and Julian Bailey, all obviously, Quinton Pongia played for New Zealand, and the rest of them have played a lot of NRL. So you go out and you're playing with those sorts of guys. I remember I made a tackle and had a forearm on someone's face. Quinton Pongia over the back of me going, whatsoever, like, yeah boy, get into him, rip into him. I stood up and I thought, I feel really, really confident today. I feel really comfortable. So that was a pathway. Getting to play alongside those sorts of guys, it's a great experience. You learn a lot, and they're obviously, being around them, you're comfortable on the field, but then learning off them off the field, the way they prepare, the way they train. It was a really good experience for me to, progress my game and then get to that point where we did in 2002.
Well, you just mentioned Quinton Pongia, and unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we just lost Quinton only 3 or 4 weeks ago with bowel cancer. Unfortunately, fought a great battle, but it beat him in the end. As a bloke, I found him to be one of the nicest blokes off the field who only wanted to help young people coming through. How did you meet up with Quinton and get on with him?
Yeah, so I had him that first year I was at the Roosters. Obviously, I think he left the year after, but again, he was a great mentor. Later in life, I got to work with him at the Players Association. So again, always wanted to give back. Was a great role model, great mentor, and always, he was hard. He would tell people the truth. He wouldn't mess around. He would tell you how it is. So for a lot of young footy players, especially these days, they don't like hearing it, but they know that they have to hear it. So he would tell it in the right way, make sure that they would put themselves on the right path. So but you talk about tough. He was as tough as they come. There's stories of him when he was in Canberra. He got into a fight with all these bikies one day, and so a few weeks later, the New Zealand Warriors were playing, or the Auckland Warriors they were playing in Canberra. So he goes, after the game, boys, come with me. I've got this pub to look after us. Walk downstairs. It's like a pool hall, all full of bikies. He's picked up a pool cue, whacked someone that was on. Obviously, all the bikies are there. All the Auckland Warriors are there. Massive thing. I think Frank Endicott was the coach. He's ended up in hospital with a ruptured spleen. But Hugh walked out of it. They had a beer after. He's like, "How good was that?" But again, toughness in that sense, and the way he played. But like you said, one of the kindest and nicest men off the field.
And even up to just recently, Quinton was playing local football when the Masters were on. Once a year, they have the NRL Masters up at Runaway Bay. And Quinton had been playing as a guest invitational player for some of the teams, and obviously whoever had the best shirt, gear, and could provide it for him, well, he'd jump on with them. But he would play the game against the guys who were up to 70, against guys who were down at 35, and he was around about 50 years of age. And if a 35-year-old came out and decided they wanted to belt Quinn, all of a sudden his persona would change. And within 5 minutes, that 35-year-old was in a bit of difficulty being assisted off the field. So he certainly never took a backward step, and as a bloke, loved by everyone in rugby league. After your 2002 grand final against the Warriors, you got to go over to St Helens to play in the World Club Challenge, where you got to play as hooker.
I did, yeah, and thankfully it was -7. It's bloody cold. And so I started as hooker, and when I did come off, Craig Wynn came on to interchange, but then someone else got injured, so I sat on the bench for about a minute and a half, which was perfect because that was a cold minute and a half. But it was a great experience as a young kid going over there to play. We spent the week over there, and back then too, we were allowed to have a few drinks. You know, we got there on the, I think we got there on the Friday night, so we drank all weekend, or supported the local community by donating some money to different institutions over the weekend, and then ripped into the training through the week. And just being able to be in that environment and see different things, and then play against the English team was a special occasion. So as a kid, I grew up. I'd wake up early in the morning, watch the tests that were on TV. So I knew it was going to be a tough game, and thankfully we came out with a win. But it was a good experience.
And obviously 2002 was a great year for you, playing in the grand final, going over the club challenge, because then in 2003 you've continued with the good form, and first time you've made your State of Origin debut, becoming the 136th player to represent Queensland in Origin, able to score a try on debut. What do you remember about your debut game for Queensland?
Well, the game itself wasn't great. We got beat quite well. It was game 2 in Sydney. I was actually, prior to game 1, there was a lot of talk, and this is my own fault. I was reading the media that they were saying that I was a chance to play, and I didn't get picked. Andrew G got a spot on the bench, which I thought I deserved it more than him, and because I didn't like him as a player. But then I got to meet him in game 2, and he's a ripper of a bloke. So it was I remember my first dinner. I sat down. It was Petro Sivasiva, who was my roomie. Then Shane Webke, Gordon Tallis, Darren Rocky sitting around, and at that stage, I was just turned 23, or just about to turn 23. You're sitting around looking at the room going, I don't belong here. These guys are legends. So, but they make you feel really comfortable, and Wayne as a coach as well. As you said, I was playing hooker, and we used to, again, Origin, first night you come into camp, and you'd have a few beers, and the next day was Groundhog Day. There was a trainer called Billy Johnson who was old school. He had the same routine. It was a tough session. So I was used to training hungover, or still drunk, whatever. Allegedly, we did a fair bit at the Roosters, so it was good at that. And then got into the ball work. And I remember I passed the ball from dummy half, and I think it was Scotty Prince was the halfback. I hit him just sort of on the hip. And Wayne stopped the whole session. He was like, "Mate, I didn't sign you up for that shit. Put it in front of him." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't think it was that bad." But then you see the way that everyone trains all the way through the session. It's about excellence, and everything they do is excellent. So the expectations are high, but you get to realise that really pretty quickly. And being surrounded by those guys, your game goes to the next level, and you get a lot of confidence out of it.
Because you mentioned there Petro Sivasiva was your roomie. Did you get much out of him? Like, it's difficult to get boo out of him, but when he does open up,
he's one of the greatest humans of all time. He's so friendly, so kind. I knew his dad was a bouncer at Redcliffe, and so Petro Senior was.
How often did he go out?
No, I didn't. No, never needed to. And you walked into the pub, and no one ever messed with Petro Senior. So he was renowned for being one of the toughest men in Redcliffe. And I remember there was one young Polynesian kid that took him on one day, and he actually played with us. Petro Senior gave him a good hiding, and he just shook his head. And then he came to training, and he said, "What were you thinking?" He goes, "Oh, well, I grew up with, knowing, with my whole family saying that we have to take on the toughest people, and I thought I'd take him on, and he is the toughest, so I'll just leave him with that and try and take on someone else next time."
So you've made your Origin debut in 2003. Luck comes with you again. It's not like it's hard work, but that year you've also played in the grand final, which unfortunately, you lost against Penrith, which for them, it was like a Newcastle win almost.
Yeah, so that was a tough one for us. So, you know, we watched the replay back, and I only watched it a couple of years ago. Actually, in the first half, we were, you know, it was one of those games we were in it for most of it, but there were things that happened throughout the game that hadn't happened all year. Like Anthony Minichillo dropped the bomb. He hadn't dropped the bomb in about 3 years, and just you know, little efforts in attack and in defence, which, you know, which is unusual for us. So it was disappointing, but you learned a lot from the loss, and you know, it obviously inspires you to be better, but doesn't make it any easier to deal with once you lose it.
Yeah, well, you've had another sensational year, because at the end of that year you've been selected in the Kangaroo Tour of Great Britain and France, which is obviously, for a young kid, anybody who's played football, that's the pinnacle. It's got to be the top that you're aiming for.
Well, for me, all I ever wanted to do was play for Queensland. So I think, you know, a lot of players that I've played with in Queensland players, that's, you know, the ultimate dream is just to play Origin for Queensland. And that went back to my dad took me to the Old Lane Park. I was 10 years old. He took me to, instead of taking me to the grandstand, he took me to the Outer, which for any of you here who went to the Old Lane Park, the Outer was pretty wild. So I'm 10 years old. There's a guy dressed like Benny Elias, he had the full wig, headband, Blues jersey, running around with the Blues flag. Everyone's throwing beer at him, pies, whatever. I had a fresh pie in my hand, and Dad looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Here's my pie." He goes, "Hit him." So I've thrown the pie, but then, you know, I don't know whether I hit him or not, but at least I was filthy, just I didn't have a pie. I don't think Dad bought me another one. But you could hear the hits on the ground, and it was a pretty surreal feeling to see and watch, you know, those guys run around. So, but in saying that, once you get picked for Australia, I've learned, you know, as I got older, especially through some of the stuff that Melbourne Ingus taught us throughout his time now as Australian coach, is, you know, for you to be picked for Australia, you're the best player in that position at that time. So, you know, looking back on it is very special. And the tour itself was the last of the proper Kangaroo tours. So it was we had Chris Anderson, who was a ripper of a coach, and yeah, we had some good times.
And your time at the Roosters just continued to go well, because 2004 you're playing in the second row, you made the grand final once again, but unfortunately you came up against the Bulldogs that year, and you had an opportunity right at the very end of the game to get it there, but Bob Ryan came across and spoiled it on you.
Yeah, and it was Freddie's last game too, so I've replayed that many times in my head. If I can just get a palm on Andrew Ryan and get a pass away, I think we score and Freddie gets a win in his last game, which he deserves. But again, it's you know, especially that one. The Bulldogs are a team that we, you know, genuinely disliked at the time, and you know, they got caught cheating the cap. Not to say that the Roosters weren't over the cap at the same time, but we didn't get caught for it. And they had pretty much the same team 2 years later, so obviously we hated them even more. And but in saying that, they played well and they deserved the win. It was just, yeah, it's an unfortunate memory, especially on my behalf, not being able to come up with that big play.
Oh, well, I think...
Thanks for bringing that one up too. But I'm surprised you didn't put on the video. Just to really rub it in.
I think having Ian Schubert as a salary cap auditor, being an ex-Roosters player...
Well, it has been alleged that in the 1970s there was a number of Roosters players that had their own poker machine, so obviously you come back to the league, so after the game, and imagine all the players going, "Boys, play this one, always pays out." Never pays out. You come in on the Monday, they collect their little tokens. Allegedly.
Obviously, Russell Fairfax didn't have one because he wasn't allowed in the club with his long hair. But
that was half the team, wasn't it?
As the entire rugby league community is always saying, that Uncle Nick, as in Nick Politis, is the best accountant that's ever been involved in business, and Roosters have never been over the salary cap.
Well, to be fair, the salary cap's been cheated by more than one team since the 70s or probably earlier. It's never going to stop. My ex-wife was actually cousin to Willie Kahn, so I was talking to him one day and he's like, "Well, Croc, when I was playing, the salary cap was 2.5. I was on 250, so were another 9 blokes, so I'm not sure what everyone else was on, but I'm pretty sure they weren't playing for playing for free.
And with Nick Politis, obviously, in your days in the game, he is a major influence in the game of rugby league. But he's also one of the most astute businessmen within Australia. Was he available to have a chat with about business and a coffee and a sit down and let's talk about life?
Always. He had time for everyone. Not that it was my fault, but as a young kid, you're not thinking about that. And especially back then, there was no focus on futures after footy and that sort of stuff. So if I had my time again, I would have sat down and learned more. I obviously had the opportunity to deal a lot with him. We had another board member called Harry Phipps, who was a great businessman. He used to get everyone around for his place for dinner, and he had a Korean wife who would cook for 3 or 4 days and just have this great big Korean barbecue. Great man, great family. So we had the opportunity to mix with all of our board members, and even now if you see them, they've got time for you. So I think that anyone that comes through the system now, they're encouraged to build on those relationships and take the time out to learn from these guys. In Queensland, Mal Meninga used to do it. He used to get as many successful businessmen in as he could. He had guys like Dennis Handler's the CEO of Sony, Ron Murray from Murray Buses, John Grant was in there. We had Lachlan Murdoch. These sorts of guys coming in to have dinner with us, lunch with us. We can pick their brains and then have their contact numbers and be able to call on them whenever we need if there was time we needed advice.
Sensational how those doors can open as long as you are prepared to approach them and ask for their help. Yeah. But from your time with the Roosters, you've then decided it's not cold enough in Sydney, I'm going to go to
Melbourne. I didn't decide.
I
kind of
just
like
pushed
pushed a little bit, yeah. Well, I always thought I was going to be a one-club player. Moved down to Sydney, loved the club, loved the blokes I was with. In hindsight, it was the best thing for me to get out of Sydney. And at the time, so pre-season, I got arrested. My mate was in a fight, and I jumped in and got arrested, and got most of the blame for it. And then injured myself playing Oztag, which didn't go down too well. So I missed the start of the season. And then I think a few of the board members got together and said, we're not getting value for money. We need to buy 5'8". Let's free up some space. So moved on to Melbourne, which was a great decision for me to get out of Sydney because, like I said, in Sydney we played good footy. We trained really hard, but we partied just as hard as well. So it was good for me to get out of that environment and get down to Melbourne. And in that, the short time that I was there, I learned so much about myself as a person and a player under Craig, which was, it really helped me to become the man I am today.
I think that's probably testament to why Craig is so successful in his position.
Yeah, and he never. So I went down there, and I remember when he sat down, and first week I think it was a training, sat down, and we had myself. This was after training. The group was myself, Dave Kidwell, Jeremy Smith, Ben Cross. Maybe one other, might have been Brett White. And he said, what do you see when you look around here? And I said, we're all sort of aggressive footballers. He goes, yeah, you are aggressive. I want you to be aggressive, but at times you can be reckless, which affects the team. He goes, I think the way you live your life off the field reflects the way you play. So if you sort that out and fit in with the culture we've got down here, I think you'll do all right. So didn't once say, don't go out on the drink, don't go out and do this on the drink. I don't want you to do that. Don't want you to do this. Just allowed us to be our own men and grow. And I think you look at those guys, especially Dave Kidwell and I had been had played representative football, but everyone else was fringe first graders. Jeremy Smith went on to play for New Zealand. Brett White went on to play for New South Wales and Australia. Ben Cross was there as well, so he obviously went on to play for New South Wales. So it was once again, it's the ability for Craig to get you to become your own man and make your own decisions. So
it would be fair to say that Craig's philosophy is, I'll show you the path. It's up to you whether you go down that path.
Absolutely, and there's so many coaches that go out there and say they'll put rules on. So in 2005, for example, so we just went 3 grand finals in a row with the Roosters, and we were drinking Friday, Saturday, Sunday. All of a sudden, Ricky Stewart goes, you can't drink 2 nights in a row, you can't go out past 3 a.m, you can't go to Coogee, you can't go to King's Cross, you can't do this. So the more rules you put on kids, the more they're going to rebel and do things. So Craig, there's no rules, there's just expectations. The expectations are that you live by the culture and the values that they've got down there, and it makes it so much easier for everyone to be accountable for their actions, but also for the players and the leadership group to be able to drive it.
Because with Melbourne, you're there from 2006 to 2008, it's alleged that you were their lucky charm. During the whole time that the 3 years you were there, you only played in 3 losing games. That's a phenomenal statistic.
Yeah, I was suspended and injured for a fair few of them.
Yeah, nobody knew about it.
And one of those, I was filthy at Craig. It was actually I think the second game we lost it. It was the first semi-final. So it was first versus 8th. We were playing New Zealand, and I was on the right edge. So the night before training, Ryan Hoffman stood on my toe. Woke up in the morning, had a hematoma, so it was like a big blood blister in your big toe, and it's unbearable pain. So had to drill a hole in my toe to release all the blood. I had to play with a painful injection. So he walked me off with 5 minutes to go, and I was like, no, I'm okay. He goes, no, we need to rest you. Because thought we had the game won. They scored down my right edge on the death to win the game. So I was ropeable at Craig for that. But it was a good lesson for us to learn, because we needed to play for the full 80 minutes.
Well, unfortunately, 2006, I think. No, you only played.
I missed out the grand final in 2006.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's right. You got injured in the game in a preliminary final against St George, which forced you out of the grand final, which was unfortunate. Which I think in the grand final they lost against the Brisbane Broncos. You weren't there.
Clearly, that's the reason.
The 2008 grand final, Manly.
I was there, so that wasn't my fault.
That was one.
I can't say it wasn't my fault. And that was a 40-0 flogging, so it was a tough one.
But then you came back.
Which every Manly fan reminds me any time I see him.
Of course they do. And I'm sure you remind them about the 2007 grand final.
Yeah, I'm not like that. Lots of people bring it up, and that point in time. So I was lucky to win that one in 2002. You're a young kid, like you said. I was blessed. Growing up, I'd always played in grand final, so I just expected that every year you're going to play grand final, you're going to win it, and that's how my mindset was. And to win it as a kid, I didn't really think too much of it. But then, obviously you go through, you lose the next couple, and then you start to realise that God, there's a lot more to this game than you think. And then you hear all these other stories about superstar players that never even played in grand final. So yeah, by the time I got to 2007, I was in the senior playing group in Melbourne, and played a reasonable role in that game. So it's something that I took the time after the game, especially to soak it all up and really feel the emotion of what it means, and look around and see the emotion on the players' faces, look at the opposition, just to see how they feel, just so you're reminded of that feeling of loss. It's pretty surreal to be able to step back and see all that, because there's so many mixed emotions. And then there's the crowd, and there's the coaches, and all the people that are involved in the game are involved in it. So yeah, there's a lot of feeling. It's a pretty special time.
Very easy for it to be a blur.
Exactly.
And later you can't remember anything about it.
Yeah, well, 2002, I drank for about 2 weeks, so I don't remember much. I was a little bit more reserved in 2007. Actually, we had to go I had to go into surgery that week, so I had to sober up pretty quick.
Well, we saw earlier that towering bomb that Greg Inglis put up that you and Billy Slater ran through, and unfortunately for Brett Stewart, he happened to be the man under the ball, and the two of you hit him at the same time. In those days, you could drop your shoulder in, and unfortunately, he copped a knock. His head got sandwiched between the two of you, and that was a very decisive moment, as he had to leave the field, didn't come back, play any further part in the game. He picked up a try not too long after that.
Yeah, I think we grew a lot of confidence from that. Obviously, he was one of their best players. We really went on the attack after that with our defence, and like you said, lucky to pick up a try, and in a grand final, that's a pretty special thing.
And
especially when your back row doesn't score too many of them.
I think you mentioned there that you've matured as a footballer by this time in 2007.
Slightly, not quite, not all the way there, but yeah, we got away with a lot more in Melbourne, so that's probably why we
you understand a lot more of the game. And I think that led to your selection that year in the Australia-New Zealand centenary test.
They also picked Brett Stewart at fullback, which I think may have been.
Yeah,
I love Brett. Great player, Brett Stewart, but I think it might have been a little sympathy vote because he did get knocked out. And I think Billy Slater had a cracker of a year that year and was unlucky not to play. And the first training session, awkwardly, they had to put Brett and I together to do a photo shoot. So, well, it was a very, very awkward moment, but he's a ripper of a bloke. We actually had a good time until it was only a 1 week tour over in Wellington, I think it was.
Yep. And that was your first international since 2004, so obviously your form's come good, you're playing well enough to make a team like that. And is that the game where Greg Inglis had that famous flick back over the...
that was the next year, 2008, in the centenary test. So it was, for me to get picked up, I was obviously really happy. 2003 I went into it. 2004 and 5 I was injured and missed out. So and they were the last of the tours before then. So in that team too, we had I think we had 5 or 6 Storm players in the Australian team, and then there was 3 or 4 in the Kiwi team. So it was a phenomenal time. That was the Israel Folau's first game too. As a baby, he scored I think 3 tries on debut, which were phenomenal. It was a game that Steve Matai knocked out Mark Gasnier with that massive hit that he put on as well. So it was an interesting game. It was a good victory for us.
And that particular victory, that was the biggest margin in history between an Australia and New Zealand test match.
Was it?
It was, yeah.
It still is?
I'm not sure.
We'll run with it.
At the time,
we'll run with
yeah.
Our world club challenge victory was the biggest margin until I think a couple of years ago someone beat it. The Rabbitohs beat it by 2 points.
Yeah.
Filthy.
Well, you should play for the Rabbitohs. You can pump over.
We'll take a little bit of that.
At the end of that year, you've signed with Hull Football Club. You've said, here's a great opportunity. I've got to get out of Melbourne. I'll go somewhere colder. Let's go over to Hull Football Club. At the time, Ricky Stewart was the Australian coach. And after you'd announced that you would sign with Hull Football Club, he said, it's the last time he'll be playing for Australia because he's heading overseas. How did you get on with Ricky, and what did you think about that comment at the time?
I didn't think too much of it. When I was playing good footy at the Roosters, I was Ricky's golden boy, so got away with a bit. When I was injured and being arrested, wasn't that much of a favourite. So always had a great relationship with him, but he was a great motivator and a great person for us to have at the club. When he made those comments, wasn't too bothered by it. Wasn't I'd never really thought about it. So rep football for me was always an outcome of what I did at club level, and he actually did pick me in the squad. And I remember it, so I was picked in the squad for the World Cup year 2008, and I was sat at home. I was actually at Billy Slater's house. I was sitting down watching Fox Sports News. It had the little yellow ticket that goes on the bottom, and said Anthony Tubu comes into the Australian squad. I was like, oh, awesome, I'd love to. Just wonder who he's come in for the injured Michael Crocker. No one had told me about this yet, so I called Ricky and gone, mate, what's happening? He goes, oh, you've got a broken rib. I was like, yeah, stick, I can play with that sort of stuff. I just get a needle and jab me up. And he goes, no, mate, I had to make this decision. And I just went, yeah, okay, fair enough. So, yeah, missed out on that, which was disappointing, but obviously Anthony Tupou was a great player and a great bloke.
As you mentioned, you're
It could have been worse. It could have been someone from Manly or something like that.
You're at Billy Slater's place when that came up. Did you, when you first went down to Melbourne, did you stay at his place just for
No, it was at the end. So when I signed with Hull, at the end of the year got married, and then I didn't, my visa was denied.
Yeah.
So I packed up the house, moved everything out. My partner had moved up to Sydney because she was going to move over once it got a bit warmer, and I found a house for us. So I thought, okay, I'll move in with Slater, and it'll be a couple of weeks, and I'll put the appeal in, and then I'll be done. 6 months later, I was still there, and had to make the decision to. Obviously, I would have loved to have stayed in Melbourne, but there was no room left in the cap. Obviously, we all know now that they were well and truly over, so there was no point. There was definitely no room in the cap. But it was a tough time. I was living there. I couldn't train with the team, so I had to do my own sort of thing. And they just had a baby, so they had a 2-month-old baby, who I now get to claim as I raised her and always remind her of that, and she's very grateful.
But obviously it is great to have a teammate like that where you are that involved with their kids, and to have that, any time you go to a game and you bump into the family, it's sensational to be able to have that bondship with them.
Yeah, and I'm blessed. The players have still got great mates. The Roosters, the Storm still got great mates, and the Storm especially it's a real family club. So everyone, especially at the time that I was down there was no one from Melbourne. Everyone had moved down, so no one had family around. So we were our own family, and that's what the club has been built on. That family is one of their most highly held values, and it's something that I think has proven so successful because Craig really embraces it, and he drives it as well.
Now you had this fantastic opportunity to go over to Hull, pick up a few dollars, but your visa was knocked back, and that dated back to the 2005 drama that you had at the Palace Hotel in Sydney, where you jumped in to help a mate.
Didn't even throw a punch. It wasn't worth it. I should have thrown a couple at least.
Well, you got fined 10 grand by the Roosters.
Yeah, because we weren't supposed to be in Coogee. That's why. And then, so the next day, after I got out of the lock-up and got over the headache that I had from the capsicum spray, one of my best friends was having a party. One of my best friends outside of football was having a party at the Palace upstairs, and obviously went along and didn't drink and said happy birthday and came out, and Ricky found out about that. So that's when the 10 grand fine actually came in, because I went back the next night, even though I wasn't drinking. He was just filthy about that.
And how has that situation helped you when you're giving advice to other young kids coming through who have aspirations of playing at the top level, where things like that can bite you on the arse?
Yeah, so it's all about the situations you put in and the situations you surround yourself with now. It's a different time, different world now with mobile phones and social media. We were blessed. I would love to have some footage of some of the nights out that we had and some of the things we did. Some footage would rather glad that there's none of it, but we always tell, and I was at the RLPA for a number of years, and it was really forced and really trying to push the message on kids that they need to surround themselves with good people. If they're out in situations, they need to be really careful. Make sure you always have people to go and speak to the bouncers or speak to the manager of the pub or hotel that you're at, just so if there's outside influences that are coming into. There's a lot of people who will come in and try and start stuff. Yeah, there are a lot of people that will try and make a name for themselves, or go, oh, there's a footballer, I'm going to have a crack at him, or now there's people that can make money out of that sort of stuff as well, which is, it's a sad state of the world, but that's the world we live in, and people just need to be really smart, and I think a lot of players are starting to get that message, especially after what's happened this off-season.
And ladies and gentlemen, we've got any South Sydney supporters here tonight? Because after your appeal got knocked back over your visa, South Sydney came into the picture, and they signed you for 5 years. You must have thought you won the jackpot. And you made your debut with the Rabbitohs in round 10 versus the Tigers.
Yeah, I remember it was at the SCG. It was, when I had trained a couple of days by myself for 4 months or 5 months before that, and came in. We had a week of training, and then straight to the SCG for that game, and it was a game that we won right on the death. Nathan Nerang kicked a field goal from about 40 out on the sideline. So a lot of emotion, and playing in the ground as historically that in the club colours of the Cardinal and Myrtle of South Sydney was pretty special. You
obviously did have a sensational time with your period at South, even though we'll get onto your injuries and so forth in a minute, but they even appointed you as co-captain of the side, and you led the team out on many occasions. So they obviously had a lot of respect for you, and you responded with the way you were playing for them.
Yeah, so plus I was one of the eldest there as well, so that helped. But I came in, I saw it as an opportunity. I had a couple of offers from other clubs, and I spoke to a number of different people, and we saw the vision that the club had and the recruitment that they were doing. We thought there was a really good opportunity there, and there was some good young kids coming through, and the ability to help mentor these kids as well was something special. And I got the pleasure of doing that with a number of young players like Jason Clark and Nathan Peets, Adam Reynolds and Dylan Walker and all these young kids that are going quite well now. So
and they're still going well.
yeah, so it was a good time for us, and then we obviously Sammy Burgess came the next year, and Greg came a year after that, and Matt King was there as well the year after. So yeah, we were starting to surround ourselves with really good people, driving some good values and beliefs within the club, and some a lot more professionalism. When I first got there, it was not that it was a rabble, but it just wasn't a professional club. It wasn't a professional environment. It wasn't an environment where people really wanted to compete and be better. So I remember one of the first training sessions I had, it was absolutely pissing down rain, and everyone was out, and there's a little grandstand out at Redfern, and they were all hoods over their heads before training. I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, I was training. Like, yeah, we're going to go to training. We're like, we're going to get wet anyway, so let's go out there. And so got Adam Reynolds to kick a ball into a puddle down in the corner and ran 20 metres, slid, scored the try. Just having fun in the rain and the puddles, which I've done my whole life. And then all of a sudden everyone's out having fun before training, which is how it should be, because I just saw all these kids coming into training, heads down, going, gee, it's a long week. And it's almost like a chore for them, where it shouldn't be. Like, rugby league is the greatest opportunity for a young kid. If it turns into a career, we've got to make the most of it. So yeah, we just really brought back the fun, and once kids are having fun, you play your best footy.
And you mentioned there that you were there when Sammy Burgess first came to the club. What did you think of Sammy coming onto the scene? Obviously, he was a star player in England, comes out here, and I think he performed quite well.
Yeah, love him. I obviously had the pleasure of playing with Adrian Morley, so I just saw him as a younger version of him, and what he brought and the energy he brings to a club is something you can't replace, and it's something I'd always, pride myself on, was being that guy that brought the energy. I was always fun at training. I always loved being at training. So that sort of stuff is infectious. You need people like that around the pub. So to have him come along as well and keep spreading that energy was something that was really valuable for us at the time, especially with those young kids that were coming through and just being on their first couple of years of a first grade journey, which is can be quite tough if they do think it's a chore.
Now, come 2013, with South, you've had to announce your retirement from NRL football. What brought that about?
So I think we played the first couple of games, and then I remember we were doing a session. We did a wrestling session, and then we had one of the guys we did an army camp with came in, and we did a bit of fitness, and so we had to do 100 burpees for time, and we did it, and then throughout it, my knee was a bit sore, so went and got a scan, had to get knee surgery, and then it just wasn't coming good. So for most of the year, I was millions of pain, and I think it was about a month to go. 1 week, I felt really good, and I said to the manager, mate, I reckon I'm good to play this week. He said, really? I said, yeah. Well, he goes, well, mate, we obviously can't put you straight in first grade, but we go over and run for Regis North, and we'll see how you go. And went out there, we played out at, we're playing Penrith, so we played out at it wasn't Penrith Stadium, it was like Windsor or something like that. It was an old dirt heap, and there was about 100 people there. I remember Matty King had been dropped a couple of weeks before, so he was miserable, and I was just that excited. I was like, mate, we get to play together again, play good for the next few weeks, and we'll get to play back into the finals. And he was pumped, and then he drove out with someone else. He got a flat tire, so he got to go out. And he was miserable. I started on the bench. Matty King was playing fullback. He's dropped the first 3 balls that were kicked to him. It was 18-0 after about 10 minutes. So I came on, there was no pressure. I actually came on and felt pretty good, played good. Cut my knee just before half time. It was actually on my good knee, a tiny sort of cut like that. Thought nothing of it, taped it up, played out the game, and then got it stitched up at the end of the game. Then it got infected, so next day had antibiotics. Day after that it was getting worse, so I had intravenous antibiotics. Day after that was worse again, it's the same again, intravenous for antibiotics. And my girl at the time was saying, you need to go to the hospital, you're going to die. I was like, I'm not going to die, I'm on antibiotics, I'm fine. She goes, this is what people died from in the war, septicemia, you're going to die. Anyway, so by, I think it was nearly midnight that night, I couldn't walk from here to the wall away. It'd take about 10 minutes, I was in that much pain. So I said, all right, I'll give in, let's go to the hospital. Went to the hospital, had to rush me into surgery, had cellulitis, so they had to cut open the knee, rip out all the infected tissue, and I stayed in hospital for 4 days on antibiotics. Got out of hospital, I thought, okay, this is all right, but then the scar tissue had attached my knee to my kneecap, so I couldn't bend my knee. So I spent the next week with physios, so laying on my back. Physios basically like a lever, just trying to, back and forth, trying to straighten my knee up. And throughout that time, limping on putting all the weight on my left leg, that flared up again, and I was like, wow. So, called it quits and just said, it's a sign. I wasn't going to try and push it after that, but yeah, for a 1 centimetre cut to finish my career, it was a bit of an irony considering the some of the stuff that I had been through.
Ladies and